first February episode of College Basketball Review Studio. I'm Matt Majinski. That's Dan Siegel. That's Ariel Puderman, your go-to college basketball masterminds. I don't know why I said that. I've never opened that way, but that's a new thing here at CBB Review. Guys, as always, if you're watching, make sure to hit that subscribe button. Make sure to let us know how we're doing in these episodes, other content you want to hear. Obviously, we have a lot planned for the offseason and for March Madness, but we are keeping it rolling with our usual here for the Week 14 takeaways and the Week 15 game picks. And as always, we start with our weekly J. Wright Award, something good or wholesome that you saw in the game this past week, Dan.
We're going to give this one to NC State's Kadir Copeland, who did some good stuff that I think would qualify for this award on the court and off the court. Let's start with on the court. In a win versus SMU, he becomes the first ACC guard since I believe I saw 1997 to have 16 assists and 0 turnovers in the same game. So really getting it done on the court. We'll talk about NC State in the conference takeaways segment, but that's what he does on the court. Off the court, after the game, he shows love to the usher of the away locker room. Just asks her to stand right next to him during an interview. It's a nice little wholesome moment, you know, showing love to the people that kind of make college basketball game day operations happen on a day-to-day basis, but receives zero recognition whatsoever. So I love to see that.
Yeah, really good stuff out of one of the ACC's best. Ario, what do you got for your J. Wright Award?
I'll talk about Elijah Arenas. So a little backstory about him. He's the son of Gilbert Arenas, NBA, I'll say former NBA star, known for some off-the-court issues, but that's besides the point. But really talented player out of high school, 5-star, commits to USC. And then in the summer, unfortunately, gets into a serious car accident, takes a little bit of time to recover from that. And then just a month later was diagnosed with a knee injury at the end of July with a 6 to 8 month timeline. So if you do the math, August to 6 months to 8 months, that's around now, end of March. So a lot of people thought he was going to miss the entire season, and it made a lot of sense, you know. Doesn't really make a lot of sense for someone to start with just a month or two to go in the season. But lo and behold, January 1st, he comes back for a team that's pretty squarely on the bubble. Struggles a little bit to start out, but then 29 points this week against Indiana at home. They pick up a huge win. Really, really impressive to see him come back just after all the negative, unfortunate things that happened this offseason. And look, I think he should stay another year. I hope he does, because I think he's the best player in college next year. If he doesn't, then he's going to make an NBA team really happy this year. But really good to see him back on the court. And not only is he back, but he's producing at a high level right now.
Yeah, really good stuff there as well, Ariel. And for me, well, I'll show a picture because it's a good one. It is Josh Schertz. Yeah, Josh Schertz, the coach for St. Louis. That obviously everyone knows St. Louis and the role that they've been on. I feel like a lot of people probably saw this on social media, but in case you haven't, having some drinks with, I guess, the on-campus bar after St. Louis took down Dayton. That was the recent game there. Of course, we know the Billikens, just one loss on the season. Josh Schertz wasn't even in Division I about 5 or 6 years ago. Comes to Indiana State, turns the Sycamores around, turning this St. Louis team around. And, he's probably going to be on the move after this season. Maybe he will stay there. Maybe he'll just surprise everyone because he obviously loves having fun there. But one team is going to be really happy. We're not sure who it's going to be, but there is a team that's going to be really happy. I'll just say there's a Schertz, Texas, spelled the same way as Josh Schertz. And, guys, I mean, UTSA might need a new coach. Maybe they go all out after Josh Schertz, give him a big payday, and start making that NIL money come through to their head coach. Just a fun thought there.
I think you should think about another Orange team. Your Syracuse Orange. I think they should give him a call this offseason.
I didn't want to bring up my team, but you did it, Ariel. I do hope that Josh Schertz is on the short list of coaches that Syracuse interviews for their new job, because we all know Autry's going to be out at the end of the year.
Yeah.
Speaking about coaches that didn't do well like Autry, Kenny Payne, our weekly Kenny Payne Award, something bad or disastrous in college hoops this past week, Dan.
All right, guys, we got to talk about this one. We got to talk about Utah Valley and the WAC. Fast forward first back to the offseason. Utah Valley announces that they are leaving the WAC, the conference out west, and they're going to the Big West. I guess a small step above with the WAC kind of dying, losing Grand Canyon recently, etc. And then this Monday, this is what we're really going to talk about. The WAC sues Utah Valley, saying that the school did not pay the $1 million exit fee that was due this past January 31st. And as a result of not paying that $1 million to the conference for exiting, they will not be able to participate in the conference tournament. And for context, like Utah Valley ranks atop the league right now. They've never made the tournament. This is as good a chance as they've had to get the at-large bid. And to compound this, earlier this Thursday, as we record tonight, so earlier this Thursday afternoon, the WAC released a statement saying home games are no longer broadcasted on ESPN for Utah Valley. That's just absurd, in my opinion. This is a disaster on all parties. Like, for Utah State, obviously pay your exit fee. Like, don't just leave and not, abide by your contracts, whatever. But the WAC, like on the WAC commissioner's point, their pettiness is hurting Utah Valley, but it's hurting the athletes and hurting the fans more than anything. And that's just ridiculous. And something bad or disastrous, I think that encapsulates that perfectly. So just a horrible situation all around.
Yeah, it's a pretty rough one there. Ariel and Dan, real quick trivia question. Who was the Utah Valley head coach from 2015 to 2019?
I was going to say Mark Madsen until you gave the timeline, because I remember how awesome he was with Fardaws AMAC. Before that,
I know it's somebody that's in the power conferences now, right?
That's for sure. And Mark is the correct first name.
Is it Mark Pope?
It is Mark Pope. He was the coach before Mark Madsen for Utah Valley. Just found that out today. Don't think I knew that. Obviously, he had to get a job before BYU, but kind of cool stuff there. They clearly have had some coaches that have moved up the ranks recently.
Yeah.
So and he'll be the Utah State coach next year when Kentucky fires him and Jared Calhoun leaves for a better job. So
exactly. It's just that pipeline right there. Ariel, what do you got here for this award?
Got to give it to Texas Tech and Grant McCasland, who is a great coach. He's not a Kenny Payne, but in a big game against Kansas at home, you just lost to UCF, who we'll get to in a little bit. You're tied up with a few minutes left. Darren Peterson just hit a big three to tie the game. Naturally, what do? You probably send a double. You basically tell your team, if we lose with anyone else hitting this game winner, then we'll live with it, but we can't let Darren Peterson get the ball. What did they do? They let him dribble up the court. One-on-one coverage, no double even comes. No double is even considered. No one's even looking at him except for his primary defender. Takes a couple dribbles, pulls up, dagger three. Kansas wins. Huge loss for Texas Tech. They're not out of the race for the Big 12, but they're 3 games out, and Arizona's not going to drop 3 games in the Big 12. So there goes their chances there, all because for some reason they just decide not to double the best player in college basketball. He's not going to win the Wooden, but I think you can make a case that right now he's the best player in college basketball. So really poor performance there by Texas Tech. Not really sure what they're going to do, but they're definitely going to have an earful whenever they get in that situation again, which they probably will as we near tournament time.
Yeah, and Texas Tech, they've definitely dropped a couple. Another team that's dropped a couple, Michigan State, but like Texas Tech, great coach, obviously, Tom Izzo. That is not why this is the Kenny Payne Award. Has to do with his player for me. It's Jeremy Fears. Guys, I know FIFA is coming up in a couple of months, and maybe if the U.S. has an open spot, they can sign Jeremy Fears to the roster, because multiple kicking fit episodes in their loss against Minnesota. And we're going to get to Minnesota in a little bit. I actually have that as my Bill Walton Award, but just for the quick note on Fears, I'm not going to say, I'm actually going to put a weird take out here. I'm not going to say it's generally inexcusable. I think that players are allowed to have frustration, and college players are college kids. They're not getting paid to do this like they are in the NBA for a sense. Obviously, they're getting paid, but, this is not like an everyday operation. So, they clearly do not, they have the PR training, but this isn't what, in the NBA, you're under the limelight. You do not have the opportunity to mess up. Obviously, guys still lose their temper, but in college basketball, I think maybe you get one chance. It's hey, we understand you're just a kid, just learn from this, whatever. Jeremy Fears, clearly that has not been the case. This has been multiple games now where he's done something a little bit where you could be hey, I don't know why you did that. And yeah, it's becoming to the point, in my opinion, where it is inexcusable, right? Again, I get it. I play a lot of basketball. It's easy to lose your temper, even in a small little pickup game with your friends, right? And so how much more when the pressure is that high when you play Big Ten hoops? But for Jeremy Fears to have it going, multiple games in a row, multiple times against Minnesota, and the way he did it, I'll demonstrate real quick, guys. I am not very flexible, but he kicked his leg I don't think I'm doing it the right way. Did he go up? It was something like this. I'm wearing my PJs right now, as you can see, but it was something where I can't do it. Jeremy Fears did it. Did I do a good job at least?
I'll give you a B-.
I expected more of a reaction for that, gentlemen. You're probably just
I was entertained.
Good. Dan was in a
I'm
trance.
still processing it. Get back to me in 5 minutes.
Well, maybe you can suspend me from the show because Tom Izzo might not play Jeremy Fears for a half, so maybe I won't pick games this week. Dan, just go to our award.
Well, I've got some more nonsense in the Michigan State department. This is against Michigan. And of course, Michigan coach Dusty May, as you can see a picture here. So Dusty May, I guess this is kind of what coaches do. I wouldn't know, I'm not a coach, but an hour and a half before tip-off, you just kind of take a peek out at the arena, see what you're getting into, especially if you're on the road. So that's what Dusty May does. And he's just assuming the doors aren't open yet. But he was very wrong, right? Michigan State student section is already filled up. So if you're Dusty May in this situation, there's absolutely no backing out now because you just showed yourself. You just made yourself visible. If Michigan State students see you and then you just walk back into the locker room, they are going to absolutely just give it to you. And they just had their victory right there. You just implied to them that you're scared. So Dusty May basically has to fully lean into it, fully just, stay there. And he just, as you can see in the picture, just sits there with a grin on his face. This is an hour and a half pregame, just sitting there. And the Michigan State fans are giving him absolutely hell, basically. Just, I think the picture kind of says it all there. Funny thing is, Michigan obviously ends up winning the game by 12 points, but just hilarious optics pregame. And yeah, this is the stuff. We talk about the NBA. We talk about just the amazing talent that you have and comparing NBA to college. Nobody could argue that you're only going to see stuff like that at college. And that's part of the reason why we love this game so much.
Very fun stuff. I feel like we've had more coaches having fun this year than we have in the past. I love to see it. All right, what do you got here for the Bill Walton Award?
Yeah, speaking of stuff we'll only see in college, court storms, UCF. I'm bagging on the Red Raiders a little bit this episode. Sorry, Red Raider fans, but they beat Texas Tech at home wearing those Space U jerseys, which, side note, are so cool. I wish I had a picture to show the viewers, but I love those jerseys. Anyway, they win the game. Buzzer sounds. They all storm the court. Huge upset win. Refs actually end up reviewing a foul. They spend time at the monitor, and they determine there's 0.2 seconds left still on the clock. So entire court is filled with UCF fans. They take, I don't know how long it actually took. I said 10 minutes. It felt like 15 to 20 minutes, honestly, just trying to get every single student off the court. The security guys pushing everyone off, back onto the baseline, back into the student section. They go up, they take their free throw, they go 1 for 2. Keep in mind, there's 2 seconds left, and it's a 9-point game when they're taking these free throws. So no betting implications, no end-of-game implications. Shot clock sounds again. They restorm the court. So I don't think I've ever seen a double court storm in a game. This might be the first time, but really weird situation. If you're the refs, come on, just call the game. It makes no sense to me.
Yeah, definitely some weird stuff there, and I agree with you. Sometimes the refs, well, we all know, refs love to make it about themselves, and we saw it there. We're going to see it this Sunday, too, in the Super Bowl, probably. I'll go to my Bill Walton Award as well. I'm going back to that Michigan State-Minnesota game. I promise no more demonstrations from me, but I am going to talk about Nico Medved and the weird job that he's done at Minnesota. They have a losing record, so I'm not going to sit here and say Nico Medved is turning around the Golden Gophers program because they have a losing record. But 3 home wins this season against Indiana, Iowa, and now Michigan State. I believe Indiana was ranked at that time. Michigan State definitely ranked. So, again, I don't know. It's college basketball. you never really know what's going to happen in this game that we all love. But, when you have a losing record and you've beaten 3 tournament teams, that is definitely saying something. And yes, Indiana fans, I am saying you were in the tournament as of today. But that is definitely quite the Minnesota. Maybe if they could just play all their games at home against ranked teams, they'd have a chance at making it to March. All right, those are our awards for the week. Let's go on to our ACC takeaways. We're going to do this for all the conferences and mid-major hoops. So, Dan, take us away there.
I think we got to start with NC State because they're fully back to being relevant this past week. They blew out Wake, and then they won at SMU by 1 point. Talks about Kadir Copeland. He's awesome. And this team just shooting the ball so well. We thought it would take till kind of next year for Will Wade to figure out NC State. We're like, I think I said it myself. They don't really have the roster, but I think it just took till halfway through this year because, like I said, 8-2 in conference play. Moving up a little bit, though, guys. You know who's 9-1 in conference play? The Clemson Tigers.
Mm-hmm.
Clemson Tigers. I mean, they've objectively played a ridiculously easy ACC schedule. I will say that, like, the entire bottom half of the ACC just is for any solid team is easy win, easy win, easy win, easy win. But at least they're good enough for those to be easy wins. And even if they're close games, like, they're winning. So shout out to Clemson. And then I think I'm just very glad that Duke is finally going to get an actual game this weekend. Of course, we'll preview the UNC-Duke game. But their last single-digit game was a 7-point home win over SMU. You know when that was? January 10th. So it's getting to the point with Duke where it's like you can't even – there's always something better to watch because they're already up by 20 halfway through the first half.
Yeah.
And then finally, I got to say, guys, it's time to give up on my little SMU love affair. I think with losses to to Louisville and NC State this week, they're now below 500. Turns out you could have guys that could get buckets, but you also have to play defense, and they just don't do that. So defense matters. That was a misevaluation on my end.
All right, that's the ACC. Definitely a good conference, but a better conference, probably the best in college hoops, the Big 12. Ario, what did you see this past week there?
Yeah, so I know quickly, I totally forgot that Duke and Michigan are playing in 2 weeks. Like, how awesome is that going to be? And just the fact that it turned out the way it has, like, great scheduling by both of those teams. But to the Big 12, let's talk about the number 1 team in the country, Arizona. Still undefeated, of course. They play Oklahoma State this week, and then listen to the schedule to close out the season. They go at Kansas, versus Texas Tech, versus BYU, at Houston, at Baylor, against Kansas again, against Iowa State, and then at Colorado. So if they can finish the season undefeated and parlay that with their wins against Florida and UConn and at San Diego State and Auburn and UCLA to start the season, I think we're talking about the greatest regular season of all time. Obviously, that's a big if, but really impressive. Keep an eye on Arizona as they go through that gauntlet the rest of the season. Speaking of teams going through gauntlet right now, BYU 4-5. They've just lost to Oklahoma State on the road. Not really looking good. Their best Big 12 win right now is a 6-point win against TCU. So they have a lot of opportunities left, obviously, like every team in the Big 12, but something to keep an eye on. And then just talking about a team that really hasn't figured it out, Kansas State 1-8 in conference play. I think a lot of people expected them to be competitive, at least be a bubble team this year with Haggerty and all those other pieces around them. But yikes, it's been bad. If Tank can make it another season, then good for his agent, but things are not doing well in Manhattan. And I don't think there's much that can turn around at this point with that team.
All right, crazy stuff out of the Big 12. Just great stuff in that conference. It does not get old. I'll move on to the Big East, and I'll keep it very quick because there really is not much to talk about, as the Big East has unfortunately turned into a mid-major league, with the exception of UConn and St. John's. Of course, we'll pick that game later in our episode today. I do want to shout out Villanova because the Wildcats have now won 3 of 4. They've won their last 2. They took down Providence. They took down Seton Hall. It might be a two-pony race in the Big East at the top, but I think that Villanova is really emerging into the conference scene as a whole. Obviously, it remains to be seen what UConn's going to do long-term, if they are going to go to a power conference, if they're going to stick it out in the Big East. But it is good to know that it seems like in the near future, we're going to have the Huskies, we're going to have the Red Storm, we're going to have the Wildcats. But then I want to talk about Seton Hall, because Seton Hall, for a team that had a very promising non-conference and started out okay in the Big East. That 4-game losing streak and losing to DePaul might be what really destroys this team. Seton Hall has just not looked great. They beat Xavier, they beat Marquette, but they can't seem to win on the road in this conference. They lose to Villanova. Just not a good game to have if you are a bubble team. And then I'll end it with Creighton. Guys, Creighton, 3 straight losses. Marquette broke this team. They literally did. Marquette beat Creighton by 24, and since then, it was no match against UConn at home, a Creighton team that I know it's not the Ryan Kalkbrenner era, but has always given UConn problems. No match, and then they lose at Georgetown by 8. And I'm not going to sit here and talk about Georgetown because they're really not worth talking about, but I am going to talk about Creighton because I am worried about the state of their program. Because Greg McDermott is calling it quits in a couple of years, so I want to see what that means for recruiting going forward. Are players going to trust Alan Huss? Because it's a very interesting situation, bringing in a coach, naming him a couple years out. Are players going to want to play in a system like that? I think they want to bring stability, but I'm a little bit concerned about Creighton going forward. So I know that was a lot of talk about teams maybe years from now and not this season, but that's the Big East right now because we don't even know what's happening with this conference. It just seems like it's all up in the air in the Big East. Dan, with that, take us to mid-major land.
Couple conferences I want to go over today. Let's start with the WCC. So I think we got to start with Gonzaga. Huge win over St. Mary's, right? Feeling good. And then what do? They go out and lose to Portland. The Portland Pilots, Portland Pilots with their first win over Gonzaga since 2014 and their first win over a top 10 team ever. So shout out to them. Court storming, all that good stuff. The way they lost was equally as shocking as the result itself. Like the fact they were just taking it to the paint and just beating, Gonzaga's big men. Like Brayton Huff. Like they needed him back in full form. And who's atop the league right now in the WCC? That is the Santa Clara Broncos. So some nice chaos in Gonzaga's last year in the WCC. A couple more leagues to go over. Mountain West. Stop me if you've heard this before. Utah State, new coach again, second year under Calhoun, and they're good again. They beat San Diego State. They blow out New Mexico. They're now 19-3, 10-2 in conference. Virginia Tech and Vanderbilt retread. MJ Collins has finally found his spot, and he's really good. A couple more. Miami is done it again in the MAC. They beat Buffalo and a missed shot at the buzzer. They're just holding on, making every game exciting. 4 of their last 5 games have gone to overtime or the last shot, but they remain undefeated. And then William and Mary in the CAA. This one's a good one. They're 15-8, so they're not having an amazing year, but they have 2 wins over the top team in the CAA, and that is UNC Wilmington. UNC Wilmington has just 2 losses and 4 losses overall. Like I said, they're both to William and Mary, and William and Mary just has that style, that fast tempo that really bothers them. And St. Louis guys, I mean, we talked about them. There was a stretch where they were number 1 in offensive and defensive effective field goal percentage. Belmont just passed them by 0.1 points. So finally somebody better than them. But that is just hard to fathom. They're incredible. They're legit. Miami, Ohio is a nice gimmick, but I think St. Louis is legit.
Yeah, 100%. Aced it there, Dan. Ariel, what about the SEC? I know it's a little bit down this year, but what are we looking at from this past week and the week ahead?
Yeah, we're looking at Todd Golden before the Bama game. To put it nicely, he basically said, with or without Bediako, we're going to beat them. And he was pretty straightforward with that. So heading to the game, a lot of drama around that, and that's exactly what they did. They beat Alabama by 23, scored 100 points, made Bediako's defensive presence that a lot of people thought would really help that Alabama front court non-existent. So shout out to Todd Golden for talking his talk and backing it up. Tennessee, 4 straight wins, biggest win streak in the SEC. Nate Ament really has figured out recently his 50 combined points in the last 2 games. Just another freshman who's been awesome as of late. Stop me if you've heard that before. And then I got to end it with Oklahoma, unfortunately. They're 1-9 right now, 9 straight losses after starting 1-0. Guys, is it the end for Porter Moser? I think he kind of bought himself one more year last year by making the tournament. And really the only reason why is because he had a superstar freshman. But do you think this is it, or do you think they'll keep him around and hope he can turn things around?
I think they got to can him after this year. I just think it's been too long for that program.
Yeah, agreed with Matt.
It's a bummer, but hopefully he lands on his feet, because we saw what he did at Loyola Chicago. One of the best memories for probably all of us was that March Madness run they went on.
I don't remember that March Madness.
Virginia fan, for those who don't know.
Yeah.
Ario, if you're done, I'll take it to the Big Ten. Look, I already talked about Michigan State, Michigan State, Minnesota. We already talked a little bit about some Big Ten teams. So I'll do three that we haven't really talked about this show. USC, shout out to them for not having Rodney Rice healthy and still finding out ways to get wins, most recently by 6 over Indiana. I know I talked about Indiana being a tournament team. USC looks they're on their way. They're barely in the top 50 in the net, by the way. We put a graphic for a blind resume for our Instagram and Twitter, our social pages here on CBB Review. I was surprised to see that they just haven't moved up, but shout out to USC because they do look like a tournament team. A team that really doesn't, Ohio State, and guys, I'm afraid of Ohio State going forward. I really am. Talk about a guy, and I'll ask you guys the same question in a sec. Jake Diebler. I mean, Ohio State, no quad one wins. They're 15-7. They've still got Michigan at home, Virginia at home, Michigan State on the road, Iowa on the road, Purdue at home, Indiana in another big bubble game. They've got USC and Wisconsin mixed in there. I mean, pretty much the only game that you know they're going to win going forward is at Penn State. Every other game is a toss-up. I'm afraid for Ohio State. So real quick, does Jake Diebler last another year?
My question is, who do they go for? Do they go for Steele and stay in state and just like get the win there? Like there needs to be an option where it makes sense for them to can him, but he's obviously not the answer long term. So it's whether they do it now or they wait.
Yeah. I mean, there's a non-zero chance they do end up salvaging something this year. So that one's a little early to say, but not looking great.
Yeah, fair. And then I'll end it with Illinois. I don't think people realize how good this Illinois team is, guys. They haven't lost since one of their first Big Ten games of the year against Nebraska. They ended up beating that same Nebraska team on the road. Their only other losses out of conference were UConn and Alabama, 2 highly contested games. They beat Tennessee in the non-con. They beat Texas Tech in the non-con. They're just rattling off wins, most recently by 40 points over Northwestern, and a big game against Michigan State coming up this weekend. I know we have that on our game picks, but shout out to Illinois because I don't think people realize how good this team is. I know they're top 5 in the country, but I said it preseason. I mean, this is a team that can cut down the nets when at their full strength. Guys, it is reached past midnight on the East Coast, so let's go right into our game picks. And yeah, this one today, Friday, UConn at St. John's at 8 p.m. on Fox. Ariel, Dan, and then me.
You know, I had the pleasure of going to the DePaul game on Tuesday where they played St. John's. Got to see Rick Pitino in person for the first time, so that was pretty exciting. And last time they played, my only takeaway was that this St. John's team is soft. They were just letting Houston dominate them, totally out physicaled, and I think they've really improved on that. And for that reason, I think St. John's gets it done at home and they pick up the win.
Okay, I'm gonna stick with UConn here. I think UConn has just shown a lot more their ability to win these kind of big games. Like St. John's has improved a lot, I agree, but they've also, for the most part, just been a lot better and consistently better than the bottom of the Big East or just worse Big East teams. I think UConn's a lot more battle tested. I trust them more. Give me UConn.
I think this truly is a coaching battle. It is truly obviously a 50-50 game because UConn fans will show up, so don't consider this totally a home game for St. John's. But I just look at Rick Pitino, and he seems more calm-mannered. He seems more like himself. He was ripping the St. John's team earlier this season. He just seems more like the Rick Pitino that can win these big games, and obviously one of the best coaches in the game. And I know Dan Hurley's right there with him. They might arguably be the 2 best coaches or 2 of the top 5 in college basketball. But the way that Rick Pitino, he went on and talked with John Rothstein about this matchup, it just seems like he's got that aura about him. I think that he brings that energy into this game, and I think that the coaching is what helps get this one done. Give me the Red Storm. Let's go to an unranked game, but a big one in the SEC, Alabama at Auburn, Saturday at 4.
Yeah, the Iron Bowl. I love it. Does the Bediako curse continue? I think they're 1-3 since he came to Bama, maybe 1-2. Actually, I think they won 2 games now, but losing record since he started, so not great. I think Auburn wins this game for the sole reason that hostile environment and it's at home. I think their guards are playing a lot better right now. And Alabama's just still banged up. Philon's on 100%. Hallways, I don't even know if he's playing. So unless they're completely healthy, I think Auburn wins this game.
Yeah, Auburn hasn't been like that bad. Alabama's been spiraling pretty far downward. Of course, it coincides with Bediako's acquisition. I wouldn't say it's because of Bediako, even though a lot of people want to make it like that. But yeah, Keyshawn Hall is like the best. I'm confident he's going to be the best player on the court here, and I'm going to take Auburn.
I'm going to take Alabama on the road here. I just think that that's a team that, and again, a Nate Oates coach team where they kind of know they need to get a win here. Like you mentioned, kind of spiraling. They're not out of control as far as like, making it to March Madness is concerned, but I think they realize a win here would be really critical going forward. And yeah, I just think that this is the game where Charles Bediako also realizes, hey, I've got to step up. Dan, you mentioned Keyshawn Hall, but I'm going to look at it from the other perspective. Bediako's like, all right, we haven't been winning since I got here. It is time for me to show up and show why. Alabama brought me back. So give me Bama on the road here in the rivalry. Let's go to the MAC. Akron at Troy, Saturday at 6.
I have such a love-hate relationship with this Troy team. It feels like every time they're not supposed to win, they do, and every time they're supposed to win, they don't. They had like a 2-game lead on their conference, and then they lost 2 in a row at home to teams they should have comfortably beaten. I think they're supposed to win this game just because it's at home, even though it's really a toss-up. And so for that reason, I'm going to pick Akron.
Yeah, I've obviously watched a lot more MACtion than I've watched Sunbelt this year, so I know a little more about Akron. I look at Troy's like analytic profile. There's absolutely nothing that really stands out here. Akron, I think, is a great basketball team. I think that there's a real argument that they could be favored or like at least just as much of a chance as Miami, Ohio to win the MAC tournament. Tavari Johnson, my MAC player of the year. Give me Akron.
Yeah, Tavari Johnson, the Mahafis. I mean, this Akron team is just absolutely loaded. And look, we all love Miami, Ohio. I love them as much as the next person. But Akron has been winning games convincingly in the MAC. Troy has been losing games recently. Give me Akron on the road here. It's kind of weird. I'm picking like all the road teams so far today. How about another game where I guess technically there's no home or road team except the fact that, yeah, there is. It might only be an 8-mile difference, but these fans will be there for North Carolina. Do they get the job done as Duke visits town?
Yeah, I mean, we talked about A.J. DeBonza versus Darren Peterson last week as that highly touted top 5 matchup. But how about Caleb Wilson versus Cam Boozer, another top 5 probable matchup between 2 really talented players? I think that they'll neutralize each other, even though Boozer is the better player. So it's really going to come down to the role players, those other pieces. And that's where I think that North Carolina has the edge here. I think their guards are going to be a little bit better. Isaiah Evans really needs to turn it up. He needs to hit, I think, at least 4 threes for them to even have a chance. And Vesar is playing unbelievable basketball right now. Even though Ngongpa is an unbelievable defender, I still like North Carolina overall as a team compared to just Boozer versus Wilson in that matchup. So I'll go with the Heels.
Okay, I'm a little surprised. I was ready to just put the hammer down and be like, I'm going to be the one that takes UNC, and then Ariel kind of steals my thunder there.
Sorry.
But like, I'm still gonna take UNC. Look, the way I analyze this game, you're not going to beat Duke at their own game, right? Their own game is feeding Cam Boozer, letting him go to work on the inside, and just having him score 30 points, right? Even when Texas Tech beat Duke, the only team to beat Duke, it was more Christian Anderson than it was JT Toppin. I'm sure Boozer will have his in this game, but here's my case for UNC. I think they are the more athletic team. Caleb Wilson, of course, is at the forefront of that. I think they're the better shooting team, or, I think they're better by 1 percentage point on the season, but I also think that UNC is a lot more capable of having a really hot night and just lighting it up 40+% in a given night. And I think home court advantage is a big thing in this game, even though it's geographically not a big thing. There'll be a lot more UNC fans in the crowd. I think the gap has closed on the profiles of these two teams throughout the season, and with the home court, I'm going to take UNC.
Yeah, I'm also going to go North Carolina here. Look, in that loss to Texas Tech, JT Toppin, I know he didn't star, but he was 8 for 13, efficient, double-double. he and Caleb Wilson are, what would you say? I'd say it's kind of similar players, both athletic forwards. JT Toppin maybe a little bit more inside, whereas Caleb Wilson definitely can go a little bit more outside than JT Toppin. But look, I just think no matter what, it's a tough guard for Duke and Cameron Boozer, who's going to have a big game. But yeah, I think these teams split this season in the regular season. I bet Duke takes it at home, as long as we're talking about healthy teams when they have that rematch. But I think right here, I mean, for a lot of those reasons, I think that North Carolina wins this game. Just the athleticism alone, I really like that point. I'm kind of surprised we all went with UNC here. I am. But yeah, give me the Heels. Let's go to a top 10 battle Saturday at 8 on Fox. It is number 5 Illinois. It is number 10 Michigan State. Ariel, who you got here? I love this one.
Yeah, Michigan State's playing really poor basketball right now. We saw them almost lose to Rutgers. We saw them lose to Michigan, and then we just saw them lose to Minnesota, which is exactly why I'm going to take the Spartans here. I think that they get it done. The Izzone's going to be bumping, and I think Illinois is a little bit too high on themselves right now. They're probably the hottest team in college basketball right now for a good reason, but I think Fierce is going to dominate, especially with Boswell out. And I think that their bigs can match up with Illinois' bigs, which is important. Who's going to stop Wagler? I have no idea, but kind of like the Duke UNC situation, that he can get his as long as the other players are neutralized. I think that's enough for Michigan State to win this game.
I'm just not sure the other players will be neutralized. You brought it up. Illinois is super hot. Michigan State's playing pretty poorly. They'll turn around at some point. I don't think this Illinois team is the team to do it against. Give me the Illini.
I'm looking at Illinois, and I'm looking at who they beat on the road, guys, and it is remarkable. This team are road warriors. They won at Ohio State. They won at Penn State. They won at Iowa. They won at Northwestern. And recently they have won at Purdue and Nebraska. So they have won everywhere they've played this season on the road. The only matchup I'm concerned about is what is it, Jeremy Fears, and then you've got Illinois and point guard Kylan Boswell. Did you guys check out the social media video that was posted by the Illinois players about like what player would you not let date your daughter? And Kylan Boswell had a lot of
they always say the same one every time. Then he always is like shocked when he gets the reaction.
I'm like, who's the worst person here? Is it Jeremy Pierce or Kylan Boswell? I'm obviously kidding. That is sarcasm. I actually really do love Jeremy Fears, and he's one of my favorite players in college. I think he makes a big impact in this game. But give me Kylan Boswell and his crew. That is just too funny between them. A lot going on in the Big Ten right now. Let's move to the SEC again. Florida at Texas A&M, Saturday at 8:30.
Yeah, both teams tied at the top of the SEC right now. Texas A&M, I'm really surprised and really impressed by them. And I think they'll keep it close, but I think Florida's going to win this game. They're playing like an unbelievable team right now. I was looking at Bartorvik, like the similar profiles thing they have, where they basically take the current analytics and they compare it to teams in the past. And Florida's average wins was 3.7 in the tournament, which is, if we round up to 4, that's auto Elite 8 or auto Final 4, which is crazy. And they were the highest of any team on Bartorvik. So even though it might not look like it on the AP poll or just even on the court, obviously the advanced analytics show otherwise. And I think they're really starting to showcase that now that their guards are playing a lot better. And obviously Condon and Haug are unbelievable wings for the Gators.
Dan, do you agree?
Yeah, I do agree. Texas A&M, I know, like they're not a top team in the SEC, despite what the record says. In my opinion, I mean the rankings show it. Like it's hard to call you fraudulent when you're winning that many SEC games because there's not enough bad teams in the SEC to just win against. But I think Florida's just proven more on the court. Give me Florida on the road.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. Like Texas A&M has kind of beat up on the worst teams in the SEC. I think this could be one of those games where it truly is like Florida just taking it to Texas A&M. Yeah, give me the Gators. I know it's going to be on the road, but I could see this being like a 20-point game. It just seems like they've been playing like that Final Four team, and then they just really show it. Like they're like, yeah, you think you're tied for the number one? We're going to show you who the real number one is in this conference. Give me the Gators by a lot. Let's stay in the SEC. We've been in the SEC a little bit, but there's some really important ones. This is Tennessee at Kentucky, another Saturday, 8:30 start.
Yeah, I just mentioned it. Tennessee, the hottest team in the SEC right now, more than Florida or Texas A&M, 4 straight wins. And what's important, like I mentioned, is Nate Ament has really figured it out. And I don't think Kentucky has anyone on that team who could stop him. Pair him with Gillespie, who's obviously incredible. And then their bigs have been pretty solid as well. So I like Tennessee on the road. We saw what happened last time these two teams played. Tennessee was up by 1.5 billion, and they let Kentucky come back and win. I don't think that happens again. I think Tennessee gets it done here.
Yeah, I still believe Kentucky has all sorts of issues as well, despite this past week. Give me Tennessee as well.
I'm also going to go Tennessee here. I feel like I'm surprised we're picking like 3 for 3 on some of these games. But yeah, I mean, Nate Ament has been out of this world lately. I think he had like something like 28, 6-6 in Tennessee's last game. And I think he has another big one here against Kentucky. Kentucky, we've had them in a lot of game picks, guys. And it's just kind of been impossible to pick them because you just don't know what you're going to get out of this Kentucky team. Back to the Big 12 we go. We know there's going to be a lot of Big 12 games every week we pick games. It is Houston at BYU.
Kingston Flemings versus AJ DeVance, another top 5 matchup. I mean, we're so spoiled, guys. Like, it's crazy how good these freshmen are and how good these matchups are. BYU's really struggling, though, and outside of their top 3 of Rob Wright, Richie Saunders, and, of course, AJ DeVance, they really haven't gotten much production. Houston, meanwhile, even with Flemings, they still have guys like Sharp. They still have guys like Tugler, Uzan, Sinek's playing a lot better. So another road team, but I have to go with Houston here.
I'm going to go with the home team here. I'm going to go with BYU. I know it's been well documented that they haven't really won any of their games against big teams, but I think that fact right there is kind of blown out of proportion because it's not like they're getting it handed to them. They just aren't happening to make the plays, or the teams against them are happening to make the plays late in the game, and that's ultimately why they're losing. Like, for the most part, I think 3 or 4 out of the 5 big games have been pretty close. I think they finally pull this one out and get the big win they've desperately needed. Give me BYU.
Yeah, I'm going to go BYU as well at home. Yeah, I mean, DeVance has been out of this world, and I just think that he puts it together and really puts this team on his back. You see the maturity that he has, and this is one of those games where he realizes we're at home with a great team in our building. We haven't done this yet, so let me put this game on my back. Let me get this win. And I think he does it in a way that we haven't seen. We've seen him score points, but I think we see a new AJ DeVance in this game where he's really just taking charge as a leader and capitalizing on that. So, yeah, give me BYU at home. Another one in the Big 12, Arizona at Kansas. Sorry.
Arizona has won a lot of big games this year, but they haven't been to the field house. Kansas, since their players meeting after the loss to West Virginia, haven't lost. I think they're 6-0 now. Wins over Texas Tech, BYU, Iowa State, and most importantly, 2 of those wins are at Allen Fieldhouse. Darren Peterson's playing out of his mind right now, and he's going to play. Fingers crossed. We don't know ever with him, but based on the Texas Tech game, he should play. And I don't think Arizona will be prepared to go to the Fieldhouse, and that's why Kansas will hand them their first loss of the season and will stay hot.
Me too. Yeah, Kansas wins this game. I think there's an argument to be made that Kansas is the highest upside team in the country when Darren Peterson plays, because there are plays 30+ minutes, I should say, because they're already at like a fringe top 10, top 15-ish team without him. Then you just happen to throw what you called earlier in the pod, Ariel, like the best player in the country, arguably, when he plays. That's just, there's not enough to be said about that. Kansas gives Arizona their first loss of the year here.
And I'm going to go with Arizona on the road. I just love the way this Arizona team has just rolled through everyone, up to 10 quad 1 wins on the season. Talked with Jaden Bradley today, and he just seems very just in control and just knows what he's doing with this team. He just talked a lot about how, like, hey, I'm just one piece of the puzzle. This is an Arizona team that has a lot of pieces. Koa Pete, Braden Burries, they just seem to all be playing their A game. And, Kansas has been playing out of their minds as well lately, but give me Arizona to stay undefeated. One more game to pick. It is Purdue at Nebraska, Tuesday at 9.
I was going back and forth this one. This was actually like the one game I couldn't decide. Just because Nebraska, I mean, they've looked really good recently, and Purdue's kind of struggled, but for some reason I still come back to this Purdue team. Rick Mass is going to be healthy. He was really struggling last week in those 2 losses. So I think that's going to make a huge difference, and obviously being at home. But I think Purdue, they're going to win this game and kind of turn their season around after that 3-game losing streak.
Yeah, I'm going Nebraska. I think that they've, with a couple of their losses, they've kind of been written off a little bit, and they're still an incredible team, especially at full strength. Yeah, I agree, Ariel. Like, I was scratching my head. I don't know, but I'm going to go with Nebraska. That's what I decided on.
Yeah, two teams that obviously have not been playing their best basketball. I'm not writing off Nebraska, but I am picking Purdue in this game. I just think that the Boilermakers under Matt Painter, I just have more trust in them to be able to figure out than I do with Nebraska, which for all intents and purposes still have not been in this situation in a long, long time, if not ever. So give me Matt Painter and the Boilermakers on the road. But again, I still do trust Nebraska as the season goes on. And excuse me, before we let you go, guys, one more bonus pick. Will Miami, Ohio remain undefeated this week? Doesn't matter who they play, really, because we know it's going to be a game that goes down to the final shot.
No, sorry. Marshall, I think they get it done on the road. They've just been playing with fire too much recently that one time they're just going to slip up, and I think this is the time.
They got the Minutemen on Tuesday after that, right? Am I correct, or am I weak off?
I mean, they'll win that game, I think. But
I agree, but I want it. Yeah, I wanted to hear you say they wouldn't. But I think Miami does remain undefeated. Again, it could come down to the final shot. I will say, as a MAC guy now, I think it would be quite detrimental if Miami runs through the MAC and then loses their first game and their one non-con game in the calendar year. That would really stink for the narrative, especially. I'm going to say Miami does remain undefeated. I still don't think they finished the season undefeated. I think they continue to survive in advance.
Yeah, I mean, if they finish the season undefeated, then they literally.
I meant the regular season. The regular.
I was like, yeah, that'd be crazy. That's what we all want to see happen. I do think they stay undefeated this week. I'm just going to keep saying they do until they lose, because otherwise it's just not fun. You just don't like fun, Ariel. That's what I've.
I love fun, but I also love Marshall basketball.
Wow. I don't know if I've ever heard that sentence before. You're the first person to ever say that sentence in the history of the world, Ariel. Guys, we have had a long episode, but it has been a fun one. Again, make sure to hit that subscribe button if you listened all the way through, and we will talk to you next time.